What's up, my podcast listeners and the rest of the internet? This is your host, Rafal Majashevsky, and this is another edition of Cut the Shit Get Fit. Today, as always, I forget to memorize the city names, but I remember the states, and the countries that are my top 3 listeners of the podcast. The first state that's my number 1 that's been listening to my show is the state of Minnesota. Shout out to everyone in Minnesota listening to my show. Number 2 is the state of Ohio. Shout out to everyone in Ohio listening to my show. And number 3 was a city out in the UK. So shout out to all my international listeners out in the UK listening to me ramble about random shit. You guys are awesome. Thank you. So what we're going to get into today, which is one of my biggest pet peeves. And I made a episode on this probably a year and a half to close to 2 years ago. The episode is titled that trainers are not physios or chiros. So if you're like me, a coach in the industry, people just assume that I'm basically like a doctor and I just know everything there is when it comes to the human body. And that's far beyond the truth. I know a little bit, the fact that I work in a clinic with chiros and other health practitioners, but that does not mean that I can diagnose or prescribe things or give recommendations on how to heal your body. I can just give general suggestions. And my first general suggestion is go see a medical professional first, right? Like, as a coach, and I have an extensive background in rehab, I get questions all the time on Instagram and Facebook where they're like, so my knee hurts every time I squat, why? And it's like such a broad, I always get those broad questions. It's like, every time I run, the inside of my ankle hurts, or, every time I do this exercise, this hurts, or something hurts, what should I do? And without being able to see the person in front of me, going through a thorough assessment, I can't give advice, right? Like, even in person, I'll get people, especially in my Kinstretch classes, where, Kinstretch is a little bit more on the side of rehab. People will be like, for one, I always ask, do you have any injuries? No one ever tells me. Until after the class, when they've experienced it, they're like, yeah, so my shoulder really hurts when we did this thing. What do you think it is? And again, really hard to be like, it's your whatever, and you should go get treated with X, Y, and Z. But most of the time, trainers have this ego that they know everything, and I've fallen victim to it a bunch of times, but I've learned better. But some coaches don't. They feel that they have within their vast knowledge of training principles that somehow they understand the biology, physiology, and the biochemistry of someone's body without doing a thorough hour assessment to figure out what's wrong with them. And it kind of blows my mind that one general population will just trust a trainer where they have no idea what their background is, and then ask them really specific questions about their body or their injury, and they trust their judgment. And I've seen so many times where trainers kind of blur the lines of, them being a trainer / physio. And that's something that you should not touch, because what happens if something goes wrong? You're fully liable. If you actually look at the scope of practice for a trainer, it's very, very minimal. even when it comes to nutrition, like that's a whole nother topic that I can dissect, but I just feel like it's not ethically correct to give out rehab advice when you're just a personal trainer. And the crazy thing is that the general population will always go to their trainer first to ask them their opinion, which I get, like if you develop a relationship with your trainer, but as much as I could guess of what might be going on with your body, you would have such a better diagnosis going to a chiropractor or a physiotherapist that's been practicing for a while, and every single day they see patients of all different shapes and backgrounds and activity levels and crap like that, that would have a better understanding of the human body and what's going on. A lot of times when it comes to pain during exercise, it can be as simple as just changing your form, changing your stance, changing the exercise itself. A lot of times it's dysfunctional tissue and stresses to the tissue that shouldn't be going there, and eventually the tissue yields to the excessive force, and now you have an injury, right? Someone coming in with a sore back to their trainer, and the trainer decides to use a hands-on approach, is not the best way, right? Like working in the clinic and someone comes in with like, oh yeah, I pulled my back yesterday. The practitioner in our clinic will take the time to do a thorough assessment to figure out the best approach. Most of the time when a trainer goes to a new certification or sees something on Instagram that kind of blurs those lines of physio and chiro, tends to look at that technique, exercise, whatever it is, as a one-size-fits-all. And I've seen too many times, I've heard too many stories where the trainer does something, it's not the right input for the system, the injury gets worse. And those same trainers are usually the ones that will utilize exercises that look cool, but tend to do more damage than good on the general population. Like, it just shocks me that people's like common sense goes to those extreme measures. Like, I know some information and like I can give some general advice about finances, but I would 100% hire a financial planner to really dig down deep to figure out the best approach for me to become, somewhat wealthy down the line, right? I'm not going to follow my own advice or a blog I wrote, or a blog I read online, right? Same goes for a trainer. Like, if someone comes to you injured, the best thing to do is to refer out. There's other things that you can do to rule out if it's going to be an issue with training. Because there's many times where, a client comes in and they're like, yeah, I hurt my shoulder gardening or helping someone move. I don't know what I can do today. And all you simply do is a trial and error. Like, just get them to do an active range of motion test of each plane of motion that their shoulder can do. Is there pain? Yes? Okay, we're going to stay away from that plane of motion, aka most likely overhead stuff today. And then everything else is fine. But it's your job to ensure that you're going to a professional that can actually make a difference and help your client, whatever it is. And as a trainer, it is within your best interest to ensure your client gets the best help, and that's not you. As a client or typical gym goer, you need to understand that trainers don't really have an extensive rehab background. Some do. Like for me, I'm an outlier only because I directly work with a chiropractor with every single patient. And I've learned a lot about injury. So I can make some suggestions, but I never go, you know what? don't see our practitioner, come see me instead. Most of the time, patients want to do that, but I'm like, no, you need to at least see one of our practitioners just to like cover our bases, because you never know. And I think this is a valid point, because people constantly message me online asking really specific questions about their injury, and I'll give some suggestions, but my number one thing is like, have you seen anyone about this? 9 out of 10 times they're like, no. I'm like, okay, where do you live in the world? I will connect you to an FR practitioner to help out. That's like my go-to. And this is the stuff that people need to understand. It's so vital. Your trainer is not going to fix your pain. They're there to help you exercise and not, get you out of pain because you've tried some other practitioner and it was crap and you still have low back pain. Like, exercise can only go along so far, whereas a good practitioner that understands exercise is a component to rehab is going to get you a lot further. So I'm going to end it there, short and sweet. Long story short, trainers have no business trying to be a physiotherapist or chiropractor, and vice versa. But there are some physios and chiros out there that go down the coaching route, and now they have the best of both worlds. So it really, really depends. Hopefully that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to reach out and hit the show notes. Add me on Facebook and Instagram. I'm going to say what's up. You guys are amazing. Thank you for all your support. Until next time.